I bought a broken GPU hoping that I could fix it, but I got something that I wasn't expecting. Oh, hey there. How you doing? I'm TechDweeb. Thanks for clicking on the video today. So, a while ago I was looking for GPUs on eBay, as I have a few budget builds that I'm going to be working on, and GPUs are the parts that are hard to find, for some reason. So I like to gobble up good deals as I find them. And in my searching, I came across this. This is an nvidia GTX 960. And this is the 2GB version. It caught my eye because the eBay listing had this as a 4 parts graphics card, and it was only 55 bucks. The only other info in the listing was, does not work but shows up on the computer device manager when not powered by a power cable. I asked the seller if this was his card, if it ever worked, when did it stop working. He said he didn't know about the history of the card, only that it doesn't work properly. So this seemed to be some sort of reseller. You know, there's lots of these on eBay. People or companies that buy and sell PCs or fix PCs and sell the spare parts. Or they sneak into houses at night and steal sticks of RAM and GPUs like some sort of PC tech Grinch. Anyways, I decided to take a gamble. A $55 gamble. And I bought the card. My intention was to test the card and see if I could figure out what was going on. That bit about it appearing in the device manager without the power cable, that was intriguing. If the card was dead, surely it wouldn't respond enough to be accessed by the system. Does that display any video at all when booting if the power cable is attached? What about the VBIOS on the card? Can that be read and accessed? If the card was working but not displaying video, maybe there's a problem with one of the ports, or maybe a component on the card has some loose solder and would benefit from being baked in the oven. Yeah, that's a real thing. I made a video on that. Check out that video linked in the description below. I was completely in the dark, but I had a feeling that I could maybe fix whatever was causing the problem, or at the very least solve the mystery of what went wrong and maybe learn something along the way and make a fun video about it. Well, it arrived the other day. I put it in my test rig and it worked. The card worked just fine. No problems at all. I have a few computers, so I tested it in another computer and it worked fine there. I tried all the video ports on the card, they all worked fine. I can't figure out why the seller would have had problems. And as much as I would have loved to be the one to bring a GPU back from the dead with my TechDweeb GPU skills, getting a perfectly fine working card at a great price is definitely the best outcome here. It was probably some obscure random compatibility issue with one of the seller's components on their test rig, or maybe they didn't actually bother testing it. Who knows? Let's not question it too much. We'll just call that a win. So let's see what kind of experience we can have on a 2GB GTX 960 in 2022. We're going to be trying it out in my new PC that I built on a recent video. I'll link to that in the description below. We're running a Ryzen 7 5800X, 32GB of 3600MHz RAM, PCIe Gen 4, NVMe SSD. I wouldn't recommend pairing a GTX 960 with a Ryzen 7 5800X. Something much lower end and cheaper would probably make more sense, but this will eliminate any CPU bottlenecks, so we could let this GTX 960 do its thing. Whatever that is. First off, we're gonna test The Witcher 3, running at 1080p, medium settings. We're gonna end up with around 57 FPS average, which is awesome. If you'd be comfortable playing at 900p or a lower frame rate, you could turn up the settings to high or ultra. You probably could turn up the textures to ultra. That would max out our 2GB of VRAM, and then the game would have to use system memory for texture caching, so you'd probably have much more stuttering. Speaking of which, one thing I noticed here and in some other games is my 1% lows are capped at exactly 30 FPS, which is strange. But I was thinking that since I was running with a 60 FPS VSync, that maybe the frame dips are somehow related to VSync, since they're exactly half my VSync rate. I did bother troubleshooting it because I didn't really feel the frame dips while I was playing, but there's definitely something up. The Witcher 3 came out in 2015, and I wanted to try a game from 2015, which is the year that this GTX 960 came out. The 900 series is the Maxwell series, and it was a big jump in efficiency from the 700 series, or Kepler series, that it succeeded. And of course, with Nvidia's decision to cease driver support on the Kepler series of GPUs, the Maxwell series is currently the oldest generation of GPUs that are getting current driver updates. And they're still great cards, all the Maxwell series. They're still plenty power efficient and offer good performance for their price. Our 2GB of VRAM on this card will hold us back in a few titles, but even still, this GTX 960 gave me some pretty impressive performance considering the price that these things go for. And of course, mine was an amazing deal since I bought it broken for $55. Let's try another 2015 game. Here's Batman Arkham Knight, running at 1080p, normal settings. We're gonna average 56 FPS. This game was horribly optimized when it was released on PC in 2015. Like, it was a super fail. There was tons of stuttering, even on high-end GPUs. It got so much backlash from reviewers and enthusiasts. Luckily, the developer fixed all the issues, and now it runs fine. No issues at all. It runs great, actually, as you can see. And like I said before, the 30 FPS 1% lows indicate a VSync issue. But again, I couldn't feel any stuttering in the game, so I don't know what's up with that. We're still getting 56 FPS average, which is really solid, not just for a $55 GPU, but even if I paid the going rate for this GPU on eBay, which is around $120, it's still offering great performance. This card gives us a performance close to a GTX 1650, and considering the price of even used GTX 1650s, this was a pretty good value. Even more so if you can find a sweet deal like I did. Let's jump ahead and try a more recent game. This is Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which came out in late 2018, running at 900p with normal or medium settings, and we're averaging 47 FPS. This game never ceases to amaze me at how good it looks. This game is optimized well for Nvidia cards, but even so, I'm always surprised at how good it looks and how well it runs on pretty much every GPU that I throw at it. It's a third-person exploration game that lends itself well to playing with a controller, so I don't mind losing some FPS to get it looking great. As long as I can be somewhere between 30 and 60 FPS, and the FPS is consistent, and the game looks good, and I can see Laura's hair bounce around while she dies a horrible death. Oh, by the way, I had to record all this footage on my capture card. This GPU does have Nvenc encoders, but it couldn't handle playing the game with maxed out performance and recording the videos at the same time. I got this sort of stuttering when trying to do that, so just keep that in mind. If you're going to be streaming or recording, then you'll be held back by lower end cards like this 2GB GTX 960. Let's jump way ahead to last month, January 2022. Our most recent AAA blockbuster, God of War. This game looks amazing. I started off by running at 1080p with low settings and balanced FSR to give us a bit of a boost, but I was getting a solid 60 FPS the entire time, barely any dips, which I wasn't expecting. So I decided to bump it up to original settings, which are the settings for the PS4, and even still we're getting an average of 53 FPS. This is a PS4 port, and the Sony PC ports are always really good. I did a video testing this game on the new Nvidia T600. Do you know about that GPU? If not, you should check out that video. I've linked it in the description below. And this game has built-in FSR, which is an upscaling and sharpening technique that will allow us to get some impressive FPS numbers, even on old GPUs. Keep in mind that this GTX 960 is an entry-level GPU from 2015. The fact that it has held up its end of the bargain and is still playing brand new AAA titles with amazing graphics and playable frame rates in 2022 is nothing short of amazing. This GTX 960 keeps on surprising me.
Stay calm! Almost there!
What about Fortnite? All the kiddos love Fortnite, which is a game for kids, right? Not mature grown-ups like you, though. Definitely not adults like you with disposable income who can buy all the skins you want and be the envy of all the pre-tweed nerds with their basic boring skins or their played-out default battle pass skins. That definitely doesn't describe you, does it? Running at 1080p, low medium settings mix with a high view distance, and we're gonna average 158 FPS. 158. Wow. Can you believe that? In a competitive game like this, we can lower these settings right now to get some crazy FPS, even on older hardware like the GTX 960. But I personally don't like having to lower the graphics too low, because once you disable the shadows, the game gets super ugly and cheesy looking. Yeah, you might pwn more noobs with higher FPS, but it's not worth the sacrifice for me. As long as I'm over 60 FPS, I'm good. Well, I'm not good. Like, good at the game. I kinda suck, to be honest. My badass skins don't buy me skills now, do they? No, they don't. We gotta try GTA 5, don't we? The most well-optimized and famousest benchmark game of all time, right? It's our standard candle. Well, here you go. GTA 5 running at 1080p with high settings, we're getting an average of 67 FPS. Which is kind of crazy when you think about it. You know, the PS4 version of this game didn't look this good, so the fact you could pick up a cheap old GTX 960 and get a gaming experience that rivals last gen's consoles and have access to the entire library of PC games that you can play, including modern titles, this is why I love PC gaming. It's all the surprises along the way. Not just in the games themselves, but the tinkering and testing. Testing GPUs and tweaking their performance, it's almost a game in itself. I don't know if you can really declare you've won when all you did was buy a cheap used GPU and get it to run games good, but I can't help feeling that I accomplished something whenever I get amazing looking games running well on dirt cheap hardware. Like a $55 broken GTX 960. Here's a new one to my test suite, Call of Duty Warzone, running at 1080p with 2/3 render scale, which is 900p, low settings. We're averaging 54 FPS. I was not impressed with the visuals and performance in this game. Oh, why does it run so bad? It doesn't really look that good, in my opinion. Anyways, this is new to my test setup because I'm new to the game, so don't judge me too harshly here. I got 2 kills though on my first game, so I was pretty happy about that. I wanted to include it because it was so popular. I played many Call of Duty games over the years, but most of those were back when I took a break from PC gaming to enjoy a subpar gaming experience as a filthy console peasant on the Xbox 360. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 was my favorite Call of Duty game. I played so much of that game, you guys. You have no idea. I prestiged like 3.5 times. We're talking thousands of hours. Man, so much of my life was wasted on that game. Think of what I could have accomplished. If I learned a new skill or studied to become a doctor or a science guy, or if I started a YouTube channel. Well, at least one of those eventually came true. I did become a science guy. Did you guys know I'm a science guy? Yeah, man. I do all kinds of science stuff. And last but definitely not least, here's another Rockstar game. A much newer Rockstar game. One of my favorite games of all time. Red Dead Redemption 2. Now, to get this running, I needed to do lots of tinkering with the config files. Rockstar has the in-game settings locked out and won't let you exceed your VRAM, but you can get into the config files and change it to whatever you want, and the game runs fine. Why do they do that? Let me set the game settings to whatever I want, Rockstar. Let me bork the performance if I want to. This is PC gaming after all. Don't make me play by your rules, man. Anyways, we're running at 900p with my custom settings mix, which is mostly low and medium with high textures, and we're getting at 31 FPS. It's a very demanding game, obviously, but you don't need crazy high FPS to get an enjoyable experience. I think the Xbox One version of this game, it was optimized to play at only 30 FPS. So the fact that we're getting around that on a $55 used broken GPU, and that's pretty cool if you ask me. And it's one of, if not the best games of all time. So get yourself a used broken GTX 960 that's not actually broken and play this game right now.
Damn it! Whoa, shit!
You know, even if I had paid full price for this, if I got it for like 120 bucks, in this market, with the lack of availability of good budget GPUs, or any GPUs that you could actually use to play games for that matter, old entry cards like this are a compelling choice for budget-conscious gamers looking for a decent card to game on. Whether it's to tide them over until they get that new GPU they've been hoping for, or whether it's just to play older games, or even newer games, albeit with lower settings and resolutions. All in all, I'm pretty impressed with the performance of this thing. It was like an entry-level card when it came out, and it's actually held up quite well considering it's like 6 or 7 years old now. If you're fine with playing at 1080p lower settings, or 900p with higher settings, and I personally think that's a totally enjoyable configuration to play even modern games on, then you'll get along just fine with a GTX 960. I obviously hit the jackpot buying this thing for 55 bucks, but I see deals on this sort of card popping up all the time. If you keep an eye out, you could probably grab one of these for like 100 bucks. You can even get these for $150 on AliExpress. New 4GB versions of this card. And in this market, that's not too shabby. Not too shabby at all, especially considering this card's pretty power efficient for the performance. You can expect driver updates for these Maxwell cards for a few years to come at least. So what do I think of the GTX 960? I give it a tech dweeb seal of GTX 960ness. which is a special award that I give only to GTX 960s. And this is a GTX 960, and it's not even broken, so it deserves it. Good job, little buddy. So what do you guys think of the GTX 960? And you, are you rocking an old GPU? Something you've had for a few years, or a used GPU you got on the cheap that's still holding its own in modern games today? Give your GPUs a shout out in the comments below. And while you're down there, give me a thumbs up if you like the video. Or a thumbs down if you bought a broken GPU in the hopes you could fix it but you couldn't and now it's just a useless piece of plastic and burnt out microchips. Subscribe so you don't miss any of my videos. As always, I'm TechDweeb. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.